My name's Alex and I'm a former gifted kid turned remote viewing psychic. And today I wanted to talk about this collective gate awakening that we're having. So I can only speak for myself, but I attended the gate program in the 90s and it's something that I hadn't thought about in about 30 years. My life has taken so many strange turns and never in a million years would I ever thought that I could trace a lot of it back to gate, especially the purpose that I've landed in right now in my 30s. And I don't think I'm the only one who's having this experience. And what I find odd is that we've all seemed to have woken up around the same time and started this collecting remembrance of the GATE program and some of the things that happened to us in it. So for me personally, I remembered it a couple months ago, ironically around the time of the Zodiac New Year when Neptune shifted into Aries, which is a huge shift in the collective astrology that we're having, especially because Neptune is an outer planet. Neptune is a planet of the subconscious, spirituality, our higher selves, art, creativity, and it is the planet of illusion and dreams. So Neptune or Pisces energy is also known for dissolving things, but more than any of the other signs, even Scorpio, which is very occult related, and Cancer, which is very intuitive. Pisces is the sign of the zodiac that deals with the psychic phenomenon we have, like alien abductions or psychic dreams, lucid dreaming, astral traveling, going to other dimensions, remembering your past lives, and also kind of our bigger purpose. And Pisces energy can be a martyr. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people have woken up to a deeper purpose around this time, especially one involving their spirituality. We also had another interesting shift in May of 2025 where Saturn also moved into Aries, and they have been near the same degree point, which is huge because Saturn is the planet of responsibility, your mission here on Earth. What did you come here to do? Where do you need to step up and take leadership over something? And then Neptune is your higher purpose. So not just your mission on Earth, but spiritually, what is your mission? And I think a lot of people might agree that we are having a sort of spiritual warfare right now. Whether that is some kind of religious awakening and the second or whatever coming of Christ is coming, fallen angels. We're seeing a lot of weird stuff in Hollywood, like stuff we're seeing behind the veils. We're seeing satanic rituals done on stage and stuff like that. And then a lot of ET, alien contact kind of stuff is coming up too. So all of that to say, when I started having my awakening about the GATE program, it conveniently, or maybe not so conveniently, or ironically, started to happen around late March, I think it was May. It was really May. So Saturn and Aries, that's right, because my first video was in May. And what is super interesting about this is 30 years ago, the energy would have been the same because Saturn runs in 30-year cycles. So the last time it was in Aries would have been the time that I was in the GATE program. So if you were in the GATE program or gifted and talented program, please raise your hand in my comment section and let me know if you also started to wake up and remember your GATE memories around that time, which would have been May 2025, May, June, July even. Let me know when you first started to remember the GATE program or when you started to talk about it. And what's super interesting is I saw somebody else's video. It might have been Wicked Mysteries. I can't remember if that's the name of the channel or not, but somebody made a GATE kids video and I was like, wow, like I hadn't thought about this in years. And then I heard the Gateway tapes, which also kind of woke something up in me. And when I first remembered the GATE program, it was the thing that really triggered it all, or seemed to trigger it all. Not only was somebody talking about it, so activating me with memories, but the Gateway tapes and that frequency. I recognized it, but I couldn't tell you when or how often I listened to it. I just knew that I have heard it before. And his voice, Robert Ronmo, who did the Gateway tapes, sounded so familiar. And it kind of reminded me of computer class when I was in the GATE program. And I have a feeling that maybe all those memories I have in the computer classes, they might have been GATE memories. We might have been taken into small groups. I just remember being in a dark room playing games on the computer like Oregon Trail and the headphones, and then of course the hearing test. A lot of people seem to remember that, and then it's something that I haven't thought about in a million years, the hearing test and the frequencies. But as an adult who grew up very interested in the metaphysical, who listens to sound frequencies and solfeggio frequencies and tuning forks and hemisync technology, I'm like asking a lot of questions about the gateway tapes, like and the hearing test, like what were they exactly trying to do? And is it possible that some kids heard frequencies that others didn't? Like, what were these tests about? And it's been a wild rabbit hole on my channel the last couple months, because I feel collectively have been doing a lot of digging, because a lot of my content and my videos have been inspired from other comments from you guys, experiences from you guys, questions from you guys, and stuff that's been shared in my private Gate Kids support group, because that's something else that I wanted to start back in May when I first started to remember all this stuff, because I was listening to the gateway tapes and it kind of made me feel like triggered with some kind of trauma that I couldn't name. I didn't know why I had that feeling of trauma or where it even came from, but I just had this overwhelming feeling like something bad might have happened to me. And then I also started to remember the astral realm experiences as a kid. Most importantly, I remembered the sleepwalking, which I remember being a huge thing in my life when I was a kid. It was like something that we talked about in my family a lot, or something that that really sticks out to me as a child, and something that seems kind of odd. And the weird thing about my sleepwalking experiences is, like, I remember every single time I sleptwalked. I remember it vividly. And I remember I would often wake up either on the stairs, which were right in my old house underneath this gigantic window that looked out to the sky. And you know, you're a little kid on top of this giant stairwell, like with this giant window. It just makes me think of, like, was I seeing lights in the sky? I don't know. Why was I always on the top of the stairs? And then the other place I remember waking up multiple times was the bathtub. So I would be waking up mid-bath. And then I also had weird memories of flying, but it almost felt like I was being instructed to fly, or I don't know, like, or I just had this technique of flying that just felt like second nature to me. Like, I just knew how to fly. So maybe, I don't know if that's something that they were training us for behind the scenes psychically, or if this is something, because this is the topic I want to get into, is ETs and aliens and how Gate Kids might relate to that. But this, oh my God, now I just lost my train of thought. But flying, and I almost feel like it was a memory from another dimension. And what's interesting about the Gate Kids that I've talked to since my Gate awakening is how many of us remember being in these different dimensions. And I've been going down a rabbit hole the last couple of days, actually really more like the past week. And it seems to have started with the gateway tapes, the don't listen to the gateway tapes video I made about a week or so ago. And then after that one, I was inspired to make, did Gate Kids open a portal? And then I made a video about implants. And then, what was my last video? Now I don't remember the last video I made, but basically those 3 videos feel really significant. Oh, the last video, I uncovered some of the origins of the Gate program. So the rabbit hole is starting to get really deep, and it's less of a rabbit hole and more of a web where you got Gate program in the middle, and then there's all these things that it seems to be connected to, and maybe not specifically the Gate program, but the Gate program is kind of in alignment with all of these other secret, well, actually, you know what, let me take that back. Maybe the Gate program is very central, because they've been doing studies on gifted children since the 1920s, and the IQ test was developed in the late 1800s. And some of the people who were the founding fathers of the Gate program, their mother, Michael Aquino, I talked about this in my last video. He was one of, supposedly, okay, I don't have this in writing anywhere. I think one of my friends made a spreadsheet for us that we were looking at, and we were able to find like some bits and pieces. I don't think we have, I don't remember if they did or not, but I don't have an official document that says Michael Aquino made the Gate program. It was more like these groups of people and different prominent characters in gifted education. But the interesting thing about Michael Aquino is that he was a known Satanist. He founded the Church of, or is it called this, Temple of Set, which is an offset of Satanism, I believe. He was accused of child, I don't even know if I can say these words on YouTube without being banned, but bad stuff with children, and not to mention, I don't know, it might have been some of the origins, maybe not the origins, but had a lot of stuff to do with ritual abuse and cannibalism and all of this really traumatizing stuff for kids. And then he also co-authored a book called From Psyop to Mind War, or Psyop to Mind War, something like that. And it was basically about psychological warfare rather than nuclear weapons. So what's interesting about that, and then that in terms of ET technology, the ET stuff all of a sudden started happening after we used the nuclear technology. So the GATE program was really developed after World War II, where we dropped the atomic bomb, and then all of a sudden people started seeing UFOs everywhere. And then the government started putting people in fear of these UFOs. And then all of a sudden we have all these secret CIA programs. We have the development of MK Ultra, of Project Aquarius, of Project Looking Glass. CERN, I believe, was sometime in I can't remember, I think it was 50s and 60s when they first started experimenting with that. And then you have gifted kids who don't have the official funding, or I don't know if they had official funding before the 80s or 90s or not, but I think from my own research, saw that it wasn't really publicly available in schools until I believe it was either the late 80s or the early 90s. And that's why a lot of people, especially gifted kids in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even I've heard some people say they were in the program in the 50s. But these people don't have accounts necessarily of being in it like from kindergarten to grade 6 or whatever that was. A lot of them started in 4th grade. But my program in particular in Ohio, the Midwest, was from kindergarten to 6th grade, and then you went on to accelerated and AP college courses. But what I've said in many videos, which I find very interesting, not only are the creators of the GATE program, they were involved in eugenics, which is study of genetics and bloodlines. They believed that intelligence was inherited, so they could have been tracking bloodlines, or the gifted program was a way to profile people and to like track these bloodlines, which might go way back to ancient aliens and Anunnaki and reptilians and those kind of extraterrestrial experiences. But also the other interesting thing about GATE was also, it was only 5% of children. So it was a top 5%. If you scored 95% and above in your standardized testing. So that's interesting because it's a very small portion of the population. And then the other thing that's interesting about GATE is also founded by people who are heavily involved in psychological warfare, who use things like hypnosis and the MK Ultra experiments where they use substances. So pink drink, anyone? I mean, I still have been trying to figure out what ingredients were in it. I've seen I forget the name of it, fringe, I forget what it's called, I can't think of the thing. It's like some kind of pink drink, but I couldn't find anything weird in it that would have like erased the memory. So I'm not really sure what's going on with the pink drink and if that's just like a Mandela effect thing. I mean, I know people seem to really remember it, but I'm just, as far as did that thing erase your memory, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you have any more information on that, because I find that interesting. But anyways, all of that to say, interesting that these gifted kids supposedly, or not supposedly, I mean, even in the GATE group, like a lot of us have interesting things like heterochromia. I was like yesterday years old when I found out I had heterochromia, which is your eyes are like it's either two different colors, one eye's blue, one eye's brown, or it can be in the same eye. So like you have an inner ring of brown and an outer ring of green or blue or something like that, which is what I have. And then there's a third kind, which I forget. But a lot of gifted kids have things like heterochromia. And then we have, RH negative blood type is a popular one. And then a lot, if you look back at genealogy, it could be German, Middle Eastern descent. Another one was Spanish or French. That's a big one. And Scottish, Ireland, and Wales. So something about... I forget what kind, I don't know my geography too much, but something about Wales too. So I don't know if that's England or what, but I remember Ireland and Scottish. So it seems to be another common thread between GATE kids and also firstborn children, but that might be a genetic thing too. I don't know if that has anything to do with like your best, I sound like a elitist right now. That's not what I'm trying to be, but like, I don't know, like scientifically, do you have the best eggs come forth, like, or the strongest eggs come forward first? Is that way the firstborn child was picked. I don't know. If you know, let me know. I'm trying to educate myself on this. I don't know. But that's just one thing I was thinking about. So anyways, we've all been chosen based on our bloodlines. We've been supposedly, theoretically, what we think, experimented on in childhood. A lot of us have psychic experiences from the time we were younger, and a lot of us remember traveling interdimensionally. So whether that was stimulated by the gateway tapes or things that we didn't gifted, or we were hypnotized to do these things because they could have been using us for Project Looking Glass experiments, which I've covered in another video about portals. Or this could have been something genetic, something soul level, which I don't think I've explored this from a soul level quite yet. I have mentioned in earlier videos the gate kids and the water connection, and I talked about our connection to ancient Lemuria and Indigo children. I know for a fact that I'm an Indigo soul because I had my aura read at a psychic fair in 2017, and this lady, I don't know if she was flattering me, but she seemed very shocked to see my aura. She was like, I've never seen one like this. Like, can I tell my son? I'm sorry, but it's just, wow. And there's a guardian angel there, and these 3 streams of consciousness directly coming to your head. And my whole life, I've had clairaudience, claircognizance. So you know because you know, you hear things, you might hear voices, or not in a schizophrenic way, but just have things implanted in your head. Clairsentience is a big one for me too. I feel things. I've always been so empathic. These are also seem to be common traits among gate children. Super empathic and some kind of claircognizance. But I'm wondering in my mind how many of us are actual volunteer souls, part of the Indigo wave of souls that came on this planet to assist with Earth's ascension, which I believe, this is the rabbit hole I want to go down today, I think is all connected to what was happening in the 1940s with all of the war stuff and the nuclear war, and then ETs and UFOs being spotted for the first time on the planet, and then the government all of a sudden creating all these secret programs, and like now all these abductions are happening, which I literally watched videos on whistleblowers saying that a lot of these abductions were planned by the government. I think Whitley Strieber might talk about it. I don't know if this is right, but from memory, I was getting into his stuff a couple months ago, and I swear I remember him saying something about governments. One of the spaceships he was on could have been a lot of military kids. So I think a lot of kids who were abducted could have been abducted by government programs, whether that was they were abducted on a real ship or they had recovered alien technology and the government, our government, were controlling it and then having abduction experiences to make us fear aliens. So I have been on a bender the last couple of days listening to Bob Lazar and Dolores Cannon. I resonate with both of these people a lot. I remember hearing Bob Lazar's documentary in 2014. It was honestly might have been one of the triggers or like catalysts for one of my first big spiritual awakenings. That was the year that I decided to stop drinking, and I started thinking like maybe I should get off my ADHD med, get off my psych meds. I think I should stop drinking. I'm looking for a bigger purpose. And that was also during my Saturn return year, which is really significant in astrology. So between 27 and 30, and again at 57 and 60, and again at 87 and 90. It happens every 30 years in our lives. So that could have also been something significant in my chart. But I remember I think everything that we hear, happens in perfect timing. So I don't think it was a mistake that I heard his first documentary. And the only thing, like the biggest takeaway I remember is thinking to myself, like, this is an actual thing. Like aliens legit could be here. And I don't necessarily think that they're hostile. And I remember him talking about technology that could power the whole planet, but they're keeping it from us. The elite are keeping it from us. And then things have gotten so crazy in the last handful of years, especially since the pandemic. So many things come to light about what they're doing to our food, our medical system. And then everything I learned when I was in AA and went down the rabbit hole of struggling with my own addictions to alcohol, specifically alcohol. But when I was there, I also, when I was in the program doing all that work on myself, it was like, okay, no alcohol, no MJ, no, eventually I quit smoking cigarettes and quit vaping and quit really bad junk food, because at one point in my life, I didn't know what the hell a vegetable was. I only ate meat and eggs and cheesy breakfast sandwiches and cream cheese on a bagel and just like heavy carbs and sugar and meat. And I know there's a whole keto thing going on right now, but like I don't know, I'm just gonna, to each their own. But my personal, this goes along with what Dolores Cannon says and what a lot of other people are saying. In the last couple of years, I've been way more about vegetables and like living foods. And if you actually put a vegetable and a dead animal or meat under the, I forget what kind of machine it is that tests the aura. Living vegetables and fruits are living things. They have an energy field. Everything on this earth is conscious. But then you have meat, which is dead. So the aura is brown and black. So it's dead. So what is that doing to your auric field? I don't know. But I think the more meat we eat, the more connected to the earth we are. I'm not a complete vegetarian or vegan, so I'm not going to lecture anybody on that. I have been at certain times in my life, but every so often I will crave some kind of meat, and I try to eat it from the best sources, but you know, I'm human, so I'm not always perfect with that. And I believe at the times I'm craving it, it's because I believe that as Earth ascends in consciousness, we're getting high vibrational energy. So what's interesting, a lot of people used to be vegan. I got chills right now. We used to be vegan and vegetarian because we were downloading a lot of information. It was helping us shift into our light bodies. And then over the last couple of years, as we receive more high vibrational energy and we're trying to integrate this information, I feel like that's why more people are craving meat or breaking their vegetarian or veganism, because we are trying to integrate this information and like stay grounded. Because if you have too much of this information come through at once, it can be overwhelming. It can cause spiritual psychosis, and you can't properly integrate this information if it's not properly integrated. So that's why the aliens or spirit guides or whatever, our intuition spoon feeds us this stuff. That's why they say life is happening in the moment. It's manifesting in the moment. So anyways, Bob Lazar, 2014, saw his documentary, Alien Technology. Things have gotten crazy since then. Then I watched the one that came out in 2020, I watched yesterday. And I also, on the same day, watched some Dolores Cannon videos. And I've always resonated with Dolores Cannon. I discovered her in 2017, which was another big part of my awakening, which was the end of my Saturn return year, right before I had another big personal astrology year, like when my personal sun progressed from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So Scorpio is the underworld, addiction, the occult, metaphysics, very dark energy. If you're going through heavy Scorpio transits, it's called the initiation period in astrology. So I was initiating to Sagittarius, and it was all of these things were, I feel, preparing me to be in my role as a teacher, which I feel like I've been doing ever since 2017. I got really into tarot, I got really into astrology, got into human design, healed my own addictions, learned how to do that so I could help other people who struggle with it, and kind of like was able to step into my role as a spiritual teacher. Or healer, or whatever you want to call it. So 2017, another big activation point. And that's when I discovered Dolores Cannon. And then back to these videos that I watched yesterday. Bob Lazar's 2020 documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, was so interesting because it's talking about how the government has been hiding ETs. They've been trying to program us. And then, you know, side note, all of my videos I've made on Hollywood and MK Ultra and how the CIA has infiltrated Hollywood to, you know, control the narrative. Okay, so they're the government and Hollywood and military. It's all working together to program us with these ideas about aliens being hostile. I don't know many alien movies where the aliens are nice. It's all hostile stuff like Predator or The Day After Tomorrow, or is that an alien movie? I don't know. The Tomorrow War. I might be naming these things wrong, but a lot of alien stuff. War of the Worlds. Is that one? I don't know. I can't think of names right now. It's been a while since I've watched a lot of these because I try not to watch too many scary movies because I feel like it does affect my vibration and like puts things in my mind that I don't necessarily want to program myself with. So I actually, around the same time I was having a spiritual awakening, I stopped watching a lot of TV. So anyways, CIA, government, Hollywood, programming us to fear extraterrestrials. In Bob Lazar's documentary, it was basically like he's gone off script and kind of distanced himself from the government, and luckily he's still with us to share all this amazing information. But he came up with the CE5 technique, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and he leads group meditations out in beautiful places in nature. Crestone, Colorado was a place that they kept showing, which I've been there at. Beautiful place, but very kind of like out in the middle of nowhere ish. And then a lot of other places in nature. Some other places in California, a smaller city I couldn't remember, but all these retreats in nature where he's got a group of people meditating. And then he developed a technique after having a near-death experience, how to show the ETs how to contact make contact with them, with these small groups, since we can't trust the government, since the government is mostly hostile against aliens. And there's also, I just heard Dolores Cannon say in one of her videos about how the ETs came down and already had contact with our government, and they gave them technology, but the government used it to make weapons instead of advancements. So now that the ETs are less likely to do that, and if they do come back to Earth, they're kind of prepared to come here in more of a experience where it's going to be more public so everyone can see it. But then you also have rumors of Project Bluebeam or whatever happening, where the holograms. So that actually, both of those might be true. I believe that there very well is the technology to have these massive holograms, and I would not put that past our government or our military, anyone trying to control the narrative that ETs are hostile. I wouldn't put it past them that they do use that kind of technology. And I think people who are unawakened and like still controlled by the government and not primarily a free thinker, somebody who's an NPC in my last video, as I talked about, because they're not awakened yet, or their bodies are filled with so many chemicals that it keeps them dense and it alters their DNA. So it alters, another thing Dolores Cannon talks about, when we have too many substances and too many chemicals in our body. So not only with the food that we're drinking or eating, the water, the pesticides, pharmaceuticals is a huge one, antidepressants and all those kind of meds that we've been, why are they pushed on gifted kids? Why did 50% of gate kids end up as some kind of neurodivergent that we have to take medicine for? They're trying to lower our consciousness and prevent these DNA activations from happening. But if you're anything like me, you have it in your DNA, you have it in your soul's purpose, you feel it with every fiber of your being that you are here to raise the consciousness of the planet, and you know that you're here for a purpose. Therefore, your intentions are stronger than any kind of like substance that they can give us. But that's not to say that we, as the light bringers or light workers, like can't be affected by these things, because it can definitely dim us. But I do believe that if you are one of the waves of volunteers, or the indigo souls, or the rainbow children, crystal children, who are here, who were born in the 50s, 60s, and then they really started coming in the 80s and 90s. So 80s and 90s, babies, I'm looking at you. If you're in the gifted program in the 80s and 90s, like you are, that's a huge wave. I think there's smaller waves in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 50s, 60s, and 70s, because you were the way showers. You often had it harder. I made another gate video about how the 60s and 70s gate experience was way different than the 80s and 90s. As the wage showers and the original indigos who came here in the first wave, you were literally an alien spirit in a human body. You may have never even had lives on this planet yet. And everything that I'm hearing and learning from Dolores Cannon, which is super resonating, is that Earth is the hardest planet, one of the hardest, if not the hardest planet to incarnate on, because it's so dense and people are stuck in karmic loops. So and then the other thing that's so intriguing and interesting about all this is that so many gate kids have felt protected. They should have been arrested when everybody else got arrested. They should have been in this accident and hurt when everybody else, like, how could somebody have survived that? I've been so lucky, so blessed my whole life. There have been so many times when I was a reckless 20-year-old doing things that reckless 20-year-olds do, and I should have been in a car accident, and I should have been sick, and I should have got liver problems from all the alcohol I was drinking. But I've been extremely, extremely blessed to have the health that I have, and I feel like there's always been something protecting me. And I can only relate that to the color of my aura, knowing that I'm an indigo soul. And then if you are interested in this indigo soul thing, I highly suggest reading the book Journey of Souls, because they also talk about indigo souls in that book. And the guy put like massive amounts of people under hypnosis, same as Dolores Cannon did, where he did these sessions with people, and I think he only met a few people with the indigo souls, but they were closer to like God, almost like, I don't know if they're guardian angels or like guardian spirits, or maybe they've been here anciently. I don't exactly understand what we are, other than it's a different energy. You can, like, the new souls are white or they're red. The older souls or old souls or whatever, the ones closer to source who come here as guides for humanity, are indigo in color and blue, from what I remember him talking about. So, speaking of indigos, one of the other main purposes of indigo spirits is that we're here to guide people. And a lot of us come, all right, so not only people in the gate kid, I'm not saying every gate kid is an indigo spirit, though I wonder if we are. So does that resonate with you guys? Like, how many people feel like you might be an indigo soul? And if you don't know what that is, Indigo souls naturally rebel against the authorities. They naturally are very curious, very creative. They ask why, often diagnosed with ADHD or Asperger's or some kind of mental illness or neurodivergence, especially in childhood. They think outside the box. They're very creative. So as far as gate requirements go, this would be the creative kid, not the one who's copying everybody. I've also made videos about that, how the top 5%, they chose kids who are also gifted in creative and performing arts, or those who just thought different and they were just really intelligent. So that's another trait of an indigo. But we also can struggle with addiction because we have this inherent feeling, this is not our true home. We feel disconnected from people. We're here to uplift people, but most of us don't like people because we don't, not that we don't like people, but we don't like being around the general masses because we don't understand humans. We don't understand the lying, the killing, the cheating, and the negative traits of humanity because it's not inherently within us. And if you've ever met an indigo and you like know for sure they're an indigo, you know, the only way you would really know is if you go to a psychic fair and get your aura read. But sometimes it's an intuitive knowing. Some people can actually see and read auras, so you might know from that too. But when you're in the presence of certain souls like this, you feel pure love. Like I've met a handful of them in my life and I feel like they're always pretty non-judgmental, or like they are non-judgmental. Even if they're passionate about something, for the most part, you can stand in their auric field and you just feel better. You feel understood, you feel seen, you feel loved. So all of that to say, part of the volunteer waves of souls who are here, the indigo souls and indigo children, we're here to just be and hold down that vibration and frequency of love. And we've been spread out. I also made another video about this, about the ley lines. We've been spread out because every time we walk through a room, like I've talked about this in terms of human design as well, how our auric fields are 12 feet. So when we're in public, when we're walking across people, especially if you're a generator, you can suck the energy out of your room or you can fill it with light. So a lot of generators, if you're not doing what your soul signed up to do, generators in human design, we are designed to do what we love and what lights us up and what makes us feel passionate, whether it is making a stupid podcast where you're playing around with stuffed animals and alien masks, or if you're a fashion designer or clothing designer, or you're an artist, or you work with people, you build stuff, whatever that may be, something that lights you up. When you do that, your vibration raises and then your frequency raises, and then you affect all the people around you everywhere you go. So that's part of our purpose here as indigo souls. And then the other thing that I find fascinating about Bob Lazar's documentary that I just watched is that he's talking about how 1% has the power to change consciousness and change the world around them. And I should really clip, if this video doesn't end up being too long, I'll go back and edit it and add these clips. But if not, I'll just go ahead and tell you where to find them. But there's these clips where he's talking about the science behind how 1% of molecules can shift the whole entire collection of molecules. And then he talks about how consciousness, the whole totality of consciousness is one, and it all exists inside of us, but we have to quiet the noise that's coming externally in order to tap into that. So we all have connection to source energy, but it's all inside of us, which is why I preach meditation and why my personal life did not change until I started meditating, and not guided meditation, unless that's how you have to start, but meditation where you sit with yourself, like plain and simple in nature. Like that is the best way to meditate. In my opinion, I'm very passionate about that. And I'm not saying the other stuff is bad or stop doing it, but if that's how you have to learn, fine. But like to stop at the point to never explore that aspect of yourself of deep meditation just internally without the use of anything else getting you there, so important. And for me personally, when I started doing that in 2015, that's when so many things changed. That's when I got sober. That's when I started tackling my codependency and toxic relationship pattern. That's when I was able to quit smoking and vaping and drinking and all the things and junk food. And I changed my diet. I found purpose. I quit my job. I became self-employed. All these positive things happened when I started meditating. And that's also when I started tapping into my psychic ability, and when I started interacting with the universe. I didn't know that I could change matter with my thoughts. I didn't know that I could write down something and then watch it manifest. I didn't know that I could think tap into somebody's energy from halfway across the country and then literally know what they're doing in that moment, which is remote viewing, which is what I do in my tarot readings. So Bob Lazar also talks about remote viewing in this documentary, and he's talking about how we all, maybe not all of us, I don't know if all of us do or not. I think technically, in my mind, we could all strive to learn how to do that, but I think some people maybe have genetics that are more able to tap into that easier or in a natural way versus somebody who might have to like give up all these things with their diet, and they might have to like really go through a program to train themselves to do that. But whereas some people it comes more naturally too. And then, you know, you can look at your human design chart or your astrology chart, and that could also give you insight into that kind of stuff and your propensity or your ability to be able to tap into that and do those things. That's a whole nother, you know, rabbit hole or thing to consider too. But the fact that, Bob Lazar talks about remote viewing, and then in his close encounters technique, one of his ways to tell the ETs, to connect with the ETs, and like how he tells them where they are, where they can manifest a sighting of a UFO, is that he, in his mind, projects outward where he is. So he sees himself in his house. Now he's in the neighborhood. Now he's in the wider state of Colorado or wherever he is. Now he's in the United States. Now he's in the North American continent, and now he's on the Earth globe. And then he reverses it. So he sees the Earth globe, and then he zooms into the North America, and then it's the United States, and then it's Colorado, and then it's his city, and then it's his exact location where he is. So he's able to project that consciousness to make contact with these ETs, and they all as a group get there because they're meditating collectively. So I'm also thinking things in my mind like, are the gate kids who have natural abilities to tap into meditation and probably develop remote viewing if they don't already do it naturally, and the ones who had psychic dreams and astral traveling and went to other dimensions and feel like a starseed and who have been diagnosed as neurodivergent, who may be indigo souls, do we have this ability to be that 1%? Are we that 1%? Are we that 1% who could come together in meditation halfway across the globe, wherever we are? Could we shift consciousness? Because another study that they did, Bob Lazar's documentary was talking about how there's sociology studies that talk about how 1% of people meditated, and as they were doing a group meditation, hospital rates went down, death rates went down, all these amazing things happened, and they shifted the world around them. So, and that goes back to what Dolores Cannon was saying, how this volunteer wave of souls, since ETs have a non-interference rule, it's exactly like Star Trek. The person that wrote the series Star Trek got their information from a psychic channeler, so who was getting that information from whatever they were channeling. I watched the whole series around in 2020, just the next generation and some of the Voyager, and I felt like it gave me so many awakenings, and it felt like home. And now I'll look at this podcast, I've got like all these alien creatures, and I mean, we can look at all of that stuff and all my stuffed animals and my costumes, and I don't know where the universe is leading me with this Starletta show. I've started a show called Full Disclosure, and I have plans to like channel different aliens or dress up as different aliens. So I don't know when I'm going to start doing that. Right now I'm more focused on this channel, but I think at some point I'm going to switch directions and do something like fun, because this is all fun for me. It's very creative to play different characters. But anyways, all that to say, a lot of that inspiration came from Star Trek, and it probably is so exciting to me because it resonates with me, and I feel like, yeah, this is like who I am. This is where we're from. I think we have ET DNA. I don't know. And I definitely resonate with like the Dolores Cannon thing, and being an indigo soul and a volunteer soul who's here to shift the consciousness of humanity. And then the most, I think, important thing that I got out of Dolores Cannon's work and Bob Lazar's is that they made a huge emphasis that aliens are here to help us. They're our creator. They are watching us, and that any abductions have been to collect our DNA for our highest good. And there's so many people who've had ET experiences that felt like when they had their abduction experience, they were operated on and they came back with something healed. Ooh, chills. There's like this one guy in the documentary who had hearing issues his whole life, and then he asked the ETs he connected with, is there anything you can do about my hearing? And then his hearing was fixed. So they can help us, but they have to sense the pure desire in our heart, which you cannot fake. You can't fake your vibration. And I think there's people on the planet, whether that is a lot or that's the few elite that are running things, who are building underground cities and tunnels and things to escape Judgment Day, they want us to believe that there's hostile aliens. And there's not to say that there's probably not, because just like humans, there's probably hostile and non-hostile. But I believe there's something called the Galactic Federation, just like they have in Star Trek, where they are, hopefully I said Star Trek before and not Star Wars, but Star Trek, where they have a non-interference policy where they can give you the technology, but you have free will as a human, so they can't say, they can't come, interfere if we're using it for bad. But what they could do is send volunteer waves of souls to infiltrate the system from the inside out. So that's what's happening with these indigos. We're shifting consciousness through our vibration. And in past civilizations like Lemuria, Atlantis, and other end periods of civilization, they started over when the humans ultimately destroyed themselves. But we're at a place in human evolution and consciousness, or within the universe, not just humans. Humans are getting ready to join this galactic family. And more than anything, they want us to evolve into unity consciousness. The Mayan calendar talks about this. This is something that was like implanted in generations like millennia ago. And they want us to elevate into this unity consciousness and join our galactic family and our star family. And then they have technology where you can live, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of years probably. I'm not exactly sure. But then the other thing that I found so fascinating about Dolores Cannon's work, she's not a channeler, but she puts people in hypnosis, and she gathers her information from this collective of people that she's worked with who all had very similar stories, and she couldn't make it up because it's not a coincidence. Like, why are all these people who've never met like saying the same thing? There's got to be some truth to this. So one of the things that she did was work with abductees, and one of the experiences they have is like they see these light beings who are like, I think they might be Pleiadian with like the light hair, or they're beautiful, but they have light bodies. But she was saying that is because of the holographic technology, kind of like what they use in Star Trek. So I had never thought about that before. I thought they just had a light body, but it makes more sense to me that, oh, it's technology. Like, they are projecting themselves as a hologram. And I know as a remote viewer that you can project your consciousness other places, because I've picked up on things that I have no business picking up on. Never in a million years thought I would. So I believe that and then everything we've covered in my last couple of videos about the technology that already exists that isn't being used widespread. I believe we also, I don't know if we already have this technology here that's not being utilized, or that we're going to get it at some point soon when we prove ourselves worthy as humans, that we all have technology to maybe teleport at some point, or to like make ourselves into a hologram, and project our consciousness like that. So anyways, all of this to say, one of the other things that Dolores Cannon talks about, which resonates probably with a lot of people who are doing like the New Earth thing. And again, there's a negative agenda with New Age stuff too, because the reptilians or Satanists or whatever have also infiltrated that area. But like, so there's a false light, and then there's the higher vibrational New Age communities, which that's where we have to use our discernment to tell whether or not somebody's like a fake New Age guru, or if it's somebody who's like really resonating with your soul and something that feels right to you. But what she talks about is the New Earth, where it's literally splitting like a cell. And I've seen that too. Last year I had a lot of really high vibrational energy come through, and I had a lot of upgrades in my own psychic perceptions and psychic experiences, and I saw myself the splitting of the earth like a mitochondria into two earths. So essentially, kind of like, not everyone is able to raise their vibration, or has been. And then all the children, I know this, I feel this to my core, all the children who have been coming on earth, their DNA is different. That's why a lot of them react the way they do to like vaccinations. That's why do you think that they also stepped up all those vaccinations? Because they're trying to like stop this awakening from happening. They want to keep as many people trapped here as they can. And they want to maintain control. But the truth is that we probably already have the 1% of souls on the planet who are here to shift the vibration of consciousness and help our planet ascend into the galactic family, the Galactic Federation, this unity consciousness. There's so many of us who are leaning towards homestead lifestyles, community, serving our fellow people instead of selfish things. So all of this to say, I believe that a lot of us are already on this ascension timeline. And I think like a lot of stuff in the media, movies, media, sound frequencies, all this technology and the scary stuff that we've been talking about a lot on my channel and like looking back on, like I think it's important to bring awareness to this, but not stay stuck in it and realize that that's just the opposition, but we don't have to focus on that. That's something that is happening, but let's not forget the end goal here and the truth. Like our consciousness is the most important thing. I think if you really explore, like sit with this idea, like, am I an indigo soul? I think your higher self will let you know. I think your body will let you know. I think if you listen to content like this, your body will do what mine has done. It will shock you with the electric chills that you'll get when you're listening to certain things. I think that our ET galactic family has the ability to influence what shows up on the algorithm. I think part of it is like the legit algorithm. And then I think that our galactic family has the ability to manipulate time and frequency and insert these things into our experience. That's where we have things like angel numbers showing up, like where you're thinking something, which is probably a channeled message or thought from your family, because some of us have chosen not to see them visually. Some of us just have had connection with our guides or our star family or whatever you want to call it this whole entire time, but it just happens telepathically. And that's where we get these downloads of ideas. That's where we get inspiration out of nowhere. But again, you have to keep yourself in a high enough vibration to do that. And one way you do that is through meditation, through certain kind of brain waves, and through avoiding junk food and processed food and chemicals and medications and all the pharmaceutical stuff and the caffeine and all the stuff that they're jamming into us. Like the less of that you do, the more closer you eat to the earth. Even fasting, intermittent fasting, like I did 2 days without caffeine and coffee, and the first day I also fasted for most of the day. I think I ate in the last 4 hours, but holy crap, the whole day, even though I had a headache from missing caffeine, I felt so much lighter and I felt like more inspired and energized in a weird way, even though I also had a headache from the caffeine. So I'm excited to continue on the path of weaning off of caffeine. I did crack today. I had a little bit of half calf because I just couldn't stand the headache. So I'm just going to keep experimenting with that. And I'm excited to see what happens, like what I'm opening myself up to. And I'm so interested to connect with others and with some other gate kids, because I truly believe that we could be part of this 1% of consciousness who's here to raise consciousness. And I believe that if we started to put our intentions together, that we could literally stop wars. We could stop the spread of a lot of this negative stuff. If we all have similar intentions, and then if we set aside time to do group meditations and things like this, which I know there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there who already have channels like that. They already have mass events where they have a lot of people meditate, and they've been able to actually change stuff on the planet. So if you're interested in me starting some kind of group like that, and you'd be interested in being part of like a meditation group or something, if you have interest in leading meditations or like experience with anything like that, or you want to be a part of it, let me know. Please contact me on social media, on Instagram or TikTok at Statements by Alex. Leave something in my comments on YouTube, and let me know. Do you resonate with the Starseed stuff? Like, do you resonate with the Indigo children stuff? Are you a gate kid who had experiences astral traveling or going to other dimensions? Like, have you always had this feeling like you don't belong here and that you are like ready for alien contact? We've been talking about so much negativity, so I try to leave people uplifted, but this is probably like the best I've felt making a video after watching those 2 documentaries, because it gave me a lot of like validation. Like, we don't need to be afraid. And I think when you get too far into the government conspiracy stuff, it can be kind of scary, and there's so much information out there. It's like, I don't know what to trust. But what feels right to me, what I've always said, is when you're left feeling uplifted and your emotions feel good and it resonates and it makes the hair on your arm stand up, like that is what I trust. And I truly believe that we're moving into something magnificent at this time. And I'm so glad that I came across Dolores Cannon's work again, and Bob Lazar, because I think both of them have good intentions for humanity, and I get like good feelings when I listen to them, and I feel uplifted, and I think that's what it's all about. So anyways, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.